Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Furality DevOps panel, water-cooled edition. We're here at Furality Aqua for the second installment of our panel, bringing you some more insights into the cool things we do behind the scenes to keep everything running. I got a couple people from the team on the stage today with me. We have Kakius, Shally, Miru Kitsune, Arch, and Juneos. So let's get started. So, what does the DevOps team do? Well, we do everything we need to get the website working, which is Furality.org. That's the main website that everybody sees throughout the year before the convention opens. And then once registration opens, there's the F.O.X portal, which is the Furality Online Experience portal. And that's Furality.online. This is the place where you initially register, and then once the convention starts, you get to see all the cool things like the map and how to get to the instances and all that. And then to have all that working, we have an API that lets all of the things you see on that page work. We're going to talk about that. And then, of course, for all of this to exist and be delivered to you, it has to be running somewhere, right? So there's lots of servers, and we're going to talk about our infrastructure and how it's changed since our last convention, Furality Legends. And then, of course, I mentioned during the last panel that maybe next time we would cover our streaming infrastructure for how we deliver the panels like this to you in the instance and on Twitch, as well as the awesome club feed that, rocks the ocean all night long. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then wrap up with a little bit of a retro and maybe some Q&A if we have time. So our team has grown. Oh my, has it grown since the last convention? At Furality Legends, it was me, Juneos, Kakius, Miru, and we started adding a couple more developers on the front end and the back end and infrastructure, and now we have 2 UX people, so we're going to probably start calling that a team. It's kind of part of front end right now, but it's still growing. So on the screen here from left to right on the top, it's myself, the director of DevOps, and then I have Kakius there. He is the back-end lead. And then you have Nerdy and Arch. They're on the back-end team. And then you have Miru Kitsune, who is the front-end lead. And Chris, Junior, Marty, I don't have any cues here, Rhubarb on the front-end team. And then Shally and Kays on the UX team. And then Juneus as the infrastructure lead with Arch on his team. And a couple of them here are going to cover some cool parts of the convention. So I'm going to go ahead and let Kakius take over for backend.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kakius. I'm, as Alice said, the backend lead, and I work with Ripple, who is our internal tool developer, and Nerdy, who's a API developer like me. So what exactly is backend? I like to say if you don't know what I do, that's a good sign. But we're actually the logic and pretty much all the system that runs the convention behind the scenes. So we maintain and build the systems like the API, socks, pause, status, wolf, and goose. I'll tell you a bit about them as we go forward, though pretty much each one has an integral part of making sure everything doesn't catch on fire. So, the API. So, you probably have been using it all convention, though you probably haven't realized it's what actually accepts your invite request, quick join, lets you favorite people in the dealer's den. It even allows us to administer the convention by setting up instances for events. It's pretty much one of the biggest parts of the brain of the convention, per se. So, one of the most critical parts. And, oh lord, we have a lot. Another one is F.O.X Pause. It's our instance runners, our invites. So whenever you request an invite, it sends it to a pod to run it. If you want to make sure your instance counts are correct, it goes to pause. So these are pretty much tiny little small scripts that run very often. So Auto join uses them. The RSVP, if instances are getting too full, it auto scales them. If there are too many instances, it closes them. And even lets you see where your friends are or where people in your party. So making sure that everyone knows where they are. And socks. You probably haven't seen much of it this convention since we actually haven't had a need to push notifications, but it's pretty much a real-time notification system. It lets us, if something happens, let all of you know exactly what's happening real-time on the portal. It also, if you have requested join an instance and see a little toast pop up in the top right that says, hey, your invite has been sent, that's Socksat Works. It also powers our instance page, making all the numbers update real time. As soon as we check them, you see the actual live instance counts and if they're open or closed for you to join. They are really, really cool, and probably, I say, one of the most interesting things to work on about this convention, especially because they connect to so many different things. Like we have one for VR chat, one for Discord, one for Airtable. We have like a lot of different services that are all asynchronous using this cool program. And a big one we also do is status, or it's also a tool called Grafana. Allows us to track every metric we have about the convention, how well the portal is working, how well the API is working, are the pods running. Allows us to see where all of you are at, make sure that nothing is broken and everything is working. And as soon as something breaks, we all get pretty much a Discord message or Telegram message saying, hey, fix it. It's kind of on fire. Though, luckily, we haven't had much of that this convention. It also monitors really fine details like the requests per second, which is quite a lot for Grafana. So I'm going to show you one of our dashboards that we have for Grafana. It has a lot of metrics that help us understand what exactly is happening behind the scenes. It contains stuff from our requests per second to how many people are actually in Furality instances. It shows auto-scaling metrics and all the way from how fast the API is running. Like in the very left-hand side, you can see our total API requests. This is actually a little snippet during opening ceremony when we were just getting started. And if you look at the spikes, that's when all of y'all wanted to join. So it's all very detailed and allows us to see every little piece. Here's another snippet of it. It pretty much shows a lot of our backend services, which the Jneos infrastructure team will go over, like our message handler that tells all of our runners what to do, Redis for caching to make sure the API is nice and snappy. I'll go back real quick, just in case y'all didn't see the last slide. Yeah, that's our very first top part of our dashboard. I'll leave it there for a second. Yeah, the bottom left contains total requests per second, and all the titles hopefully are self-explanatory. I try to make them as detailed as possible. And even down to milliseconds that it's taking for us to send responses back to all of y'all. And here's our message handler, Redis, our PHP runners, and making sure everything is auto-scaling properly for our code. So another one of the services we maintain is called Wolf. It's the What You Looking For API. So it's primarily built for out-of-convention use and HR uses. So you probably actually have used it if you've ever gone to the Furality.org team page. It shows a complete up-to-date list of everyone on the team. Or you've ever tried to volunteer for Furality. All that uses this service to make sure those get processed properly and everything is nice and automated for them. It also keeps maybe some new features in the future to give some more up-to-date data, but it's primarily used for out-of-convention use, unlike the F.O.X API. And a new thing we just introduced this convention is called Goose, or the General Observer of Suspicious Entities. So Pretty much it's used for convention administration. It provides real-time critical updates about attendees and the Furality worlds, making sure everything's running smoothly. If something breaks, it immediately informs us. Helps the attendee services team support the convention attendees, helps the club team get to the instances they need to. It's a pretty cool feature we just added this convention. And we also have a video of some of the Git repositories that we work on internally for the API and pause that show us ever since I joined the team back in Legends, all the work to now, and you can actually see it grow. So you can see actually how much work goes into making the API actually live, breathe, and work. Each one of those dots is a specific file, and each one of the lines is a folder. So the more it branches out, the more files and folders there are. And the day at the very top shows exactly that day that we committed that code. So that's the actual current state and code running on our servers right now in a nice little pretty format. And if you want to play the pause runners as well, there should be one more video. So this is our automation system for instance checking, all the final details that we talked to VRChat about. So that's a nice little diagram of pause. So that's pretty much for backend. Like I said, if you don't know what I do, that's pretty much a good thing. So I'm going to turn over to Shelly for UX and completely redesign the portal.
Hi, I'm Shally, and I am one of two UX engineers here at Furality. And I'm here to just kind of talk to you a bit about what I do as a design person. So, for folks who are not familiar, I'll talk a little bit about what UX is. It refers to user experience design, human-centered design, user-centered design, etc. Our job is to sort of help design solutions to people's problems. And the way that I described it is my job is to design computer software to make it easier to use. But like, what does that actually mean in terms of what we do? So a lot of our work starts by gathering feedback from our end users, from people. That could be, like for Furality, that's largely our attendee surveys and feedback, like comments that we've gotten from our Discord servers, and just general things that staff members have noticed. That's what we use to sort of drive the decisions that we make for the changes that we make to the F.O.X portal. And so we use that feedback to determine which problems we want to solve. And then from there, we come up with we work together to come up with a solution to solve those problems. That's usually a iterative design process where we begin with okay, we know what we want to do, and then we know what problem it is, and then we create sort of basic visual prototypes to represent some potential UI designs to represent a solution to a problem, and then we iterate up and update those as we go along. We test those solutions based off of feedback, and we kind of go from there. And basically the goal is to eventually have those designs that we come up with handed over to the developers to actually make what we come up with as a team. Now, just one thing I want to draw attention to is the fact that we're volunteers, so like a lot of this, a lot of the things that I would normally do, like I am a professional UX designer. A lot of the things that we would normally do are kind of harder to do on like a volunteer basis. So like the level of feedback that we get is a bit more streamlined, a bit more sort of like we use the people that we have out on hand, not necessarily like something more intense than that. But I'm getting off topic. But long story short, the goal is sort of iterative feedback, and that kind of leads nicely into sort of like what UX is kind of like at Furality more specifically, as opposed to just more generally. So at Furality, we have two UX designers, myself, Shally, and Kays. We are both relatively new additions to the team. Our design work has been on the F.O.X portal, so not necessarily on the work on the actual Furality worlds. That's all the creative team. And so we have like I mentioned before, this kind of iterative design feedback process where we start with like with a basic solution to a problem that is sort of designed in prototyping software, it's like wireframing software. I use a tool called Axure, and Kays uses a tool called Figma, and that basically allows us to mock up and represent a user interface without actually having to type or code anything. It's very bare bones and basically just a glorified picture, but that gives us a sort of a representation of what the user interface could look like. And then we share that with the team, like with the DevOps team and with other folks on the Furality staff, in order to get feedback on how we could make things better. And we kind of, based on that feedback, we tweak things, we update it, and then we do another round of feedback. Lather, rinse, repeat until we've gotten the design to a point that we're happy with it, and then we hand things over to the devs. So I'll talk a bit about some of the problems that we wanted to solve on the front end this time, based off of the feedback that we've heard from you, the attendees. One of the things was around making the F.O.X portal feel sort of more cohesive, like a more complete experience with better navigation, making it easier to join different worlds, sort of clarifying how the quick join functionality works, sort of making it easier to find which events are happening now, to make scrolling easier, and to better integrate the schedule view, the large calendar view that we have. If any of you were at Furality Legends, that view was largely static. It was largely just text on a screen. But this time we've added some additional functionality to make it more cohesive with the rest of the experience. We wanted to do more to sort of show presence, like show where people are, like how many people are actually at this event. And probably the biggest change from previous Furality conventions was the updates we made to the registration system, which Miru will talk more about in a bit. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we wanted to do as far as updates from previous conventions. And so I'll just briefly show what I'm showing on screen right now is a sort of a before and after image to represent sort of how a design can change over time. So what we see on the left here is sort of the first iteration of a prototype that we created to represent sort of how we can make it easier to find the events that are happening now, rather than just a giant list of events starting at the top of the convention. But through feedback, we ended up iterating and significantly redesigning things to look like what you see today in the F.O.X portal. And this is the kind of thing that we do. Like, we did this for several different parts of the experience for the F.O.X portal, and that's basically how it works. It's like you take examples of what exists today, make changes to it, and then see what we can do to make it better, potentially even completely redesign it based off of the feedback, and you just kind of go from there. And so once we have landed on a design, then I and Kays works with the developers to actually make the thing. Speaking of making the thing, the front-end team. Miro, I believe it's your turn.
Yes. Alrighty. I need the pedestal because I'm a small foxo. Or I can actually just... Oh, right. There you go. Yes. Okay. Hi, I'm Miru. I am the front-end team lead, and I work with my front-end team, Christoph, Marty, Junior, Rabarb, and yeah. So trying to remember the names, but yeah. So what is front end? Basically, the front end is everything that you interact with the F.O.X portal, such as the buttons, the text, the list of instances, the way the page is laid out, the way the data is being transmitted to your browser, so that is what the front end is. We utilize React and Next.js to dynamically display the data in the front end. But, what is React? Well, React is a popular JavaScript library for writing seamless web apps with features and tools to display dynamic data to the users, such as, state management, such as, DOM manipulation, because that's what React is well known for. It's basically a JavaScript library with state controls, and it makes displaying dynamic data a lot easier. And Next.js is also one of the packages that is built on top of React. So we utilize that for routing to different pages and whatnot. So head over to the next slide. One of the biggest tasks that we did was registration. Before Aqua, registration was done through a type form, which is very similar to Google Forms. So there were multiple steps to register for the convention. When you hit the button on the homepage, you were redirected to a type form, and then after that, you were redirected to like a payment API or payment gateway, and then after that, then you were registered for the convention. Now now our team has built the F.O.X portal into the F.O.X portal. My team has built registration into the F.O.X portal. Powered by React, and so it gives us a far better control to the UX, and it makes the whole experience a lot easier and a lot simpler, while we have control to what we want the design to look like. So next slide. Internationalization was another big thing we did. We wanted to make the F.O.X portal feel like home for the attendees around the world, especially within the Japanese VR community who are attending Furality Aqua. We want to make sure that we're able to offer that language for the F.O.X portal, and that's just, maybe in the future we'll support other languages too. So this is just this is only the beginning. So it's a huge accomplishment to have in our F.O.X portal. So head over to the next slide. And before Aqua, the portal was hosted on a PHP server that processes all the requests in one unit. Like, so when 1,000 people hit like the send, the join instance button, you would have to refresh the whole page, and obviously that's a lot of load on the servers. But now the F.O.X portal is hosted on a serverless platform, meaning it only carries the JavaScript code and the HTML code and all the images. So therefore, there's no it doesn't do any processing in the backend. It just carries the code that is delivered to your browser. And so as a result, the portal is very fast, very swift, very nimble, and even when thousands of attendees are utilizing it, it'll still maintain that speed. So that is why we reactified the entire front end. So yeah, which brings to another topic: infrastructure. All right.
I don't know.
You don't need that
pedestal away. Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Arch. Is there a button here?
No, it's backstage. There you go.
Ah, there it is. Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Arch. I'm one of two people on the infrastructure team, with Janaeus being the team lead. This lead up to the con, I've been doing a lot of work to modernize is maybe the wrong word for our stack, but to make it much more resilient, and also make it so that the developers, the ones behind me and the ones working behind the scenes, can push out changes a lot more quickly and a lot more confidently. So one of the big things in that was kind of reworking our infrastructure. So up on the screen there is our the infrastructure that was shown off at Legends. If you caught the DevOps panel there, it's fairly simple. We've got some things feeding into our Nginx servers that had PHP apps. Fairly straightforward stuff. A little bit hard to scale though. So all of the servers that you see there are running on their own virtual servers or virtual private servers, which is great because it gives us plenty of compute to work with, but it's also a little bit tedious to scale up, and there's a lot of sort of manual things that we have to do to make that work. So this was initially all configured with Terraform and Ansible. So Terraform for deploying the actual virtual private servers, and for configuring things like our proxies and whatnot. And then we have Ansible running the scripts that actually pull down all the code and make sure that the configuration that needs to be there is there. I don't remember exactly what this looked like beyond this graph, because it's been replaced with this wonderful infrastructure. So all of our requests come through Cloudflare. That allows us to protect our servers, basically, in case a malicious actor gets some ideas. That all comes into our brand new Kubernetes cluster, also known as Furbernetes. And in there, we've got Nginx bringing in all the requests and spreading them out to the various services that we have running in the cluster. So we've got things, just to name a few things, we've got the F.O.X API that Kakius mentioned. We've got things like the web Furality, which is Furality.org, not to be confused with Furality.online, which is our portal. That actually runs in Cloudflare Pages because we already use Cloudflare, and it gives us a really nice and easy platform where the front-end developers can just push their changes, and it's deployed. It's great. So we've got all those services that are directly connected to the external internet. We've also got this little box in the bottom left corner, and those are all of our F.O.X pod runners, or services that don't otherwise connect to the outside world, or at least not directly. So at the bottom, we've got a few. We've got things like the Allo service, which was kind of intended to replace Allo to some degree, with a lot of the manual work that he had to do at the first few cons. How it is. We've got the instances runner and the VR chat runner, invite runners. Those all talk directly with VR chat through their API. You can see there's a little line that has a little squid in the middle of it. That's not just because it's Aqua. That's actually just the proxy platform that we've chosen. So all the requests go through one machine. We can keep an eye on it, and VRChat knows that it's coming from us. There's a few monitoring things up in the top right. So we've got Prometheus that feeds into Grafana, which Kaki just mentioned. FluentD group going into Graylog, so that keeps that makes sure that we can see all of the logs coming from all of our services, and gives us really great insight into everything that's coming out of there. As I mentioned before, Cloudflare is kind of pictured here, but that's where we're hosting the actual Furality portal. So it stays very responsive. It doesn't put any load on our servers beyond talking to the API. And just as a quick snapshot, these are the services that we currently have running in production in that cluster. You can see there's quite a few of them that have a fair few replicas. This was taken at a pretty quiet moment. So you can see the F.O.X API only has three pods running. That's scaled up to, I can't remember exactly what it's scaled up to at peak, but I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 20 to handle that load. And as far as I can tell, it handled the load really well. There are a few instances where we saw, we saw some delays in invites and a little bit of a slow response, but those just kind of resolved themselves, and we tweaked some scaling. So yeah, I'm very happy with how the infrastructure turned out, and of course we're going to keep iterating on it and keep working on it for the future. So yeah, and next up, I may as well talk about some of the internal tools that we've built to support deploying code and the development of things like the F.O.X portal. So the first thing that we have is Otter. As I mentioned before, we handle our infrastructure with Terraform. This also includes our entire Kubernetes cluster. So everything is defined in Terraform. It allows us to know exactly what is happening in our cluster at any given moment because it's all in the code. To sort of stick with that mission, we built Otter, which is a small service that when a Docker container is built, which is how we package up our services into a little Docker container, when that's built and published, it will tell Otter to go ahead and grab that new image and put the ID into our Terraform configuration, and that can automatically get shipped out to our cluster, allowing us to very easily update our images while also staying to that declarative. We know exactly what's in the cluster at any given moment. We've also got Dutchie, which is a little small service that wraps our API docs, lets us keep it visible to the front end and back end teams while also keeping it private through OAuth, which is really great. We've also written various GitHub actions, so actually deploying those Docker images and shipping them out to Otter, and also testing and everything as we write tests. Those are all done through GitHub actions. We've also got a few supporting services that we haven't written in-house, but were just really good choices. So Tolji is our translation platform. We've also got Matomo, which is our analytics platform. And yeah, that's how infrastructure is at the moment. Next up, we've got streaming infrastructure. Allo, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Arch. I guess I'll stand on this pedestal. There we go. I don't really need it. All right. So streaming infrastructure. As promised from before, I was going to talk a little bit about how we deliver this stream to you. So basically, we kind of touched on this during our first panel during Legends, but to kind of repeat, the main issue we have to deal with is all of our attendees are at their houses, or they're at a different location than where we are. And this is a global aspect. They're in different countries, different continents. And so we have to deliver the video feed from wherever it's originating to every corner of the planet that's populated, that has attendees here, in a way that isn't, delayed, laggy. And, when we tried to do this our very first time, it was great in the United States where the server was, and nobody in Australia could see a thing, right? And so to solve that problem, you use a system called a content delivery network, or a CDN. There's a couple of them out there, but the one that we've just grown to use because of the other services we use in AWS is AWS CloudFront. Now, if you attended Roxy's streaming to VR chat panel, there's a lot more very cost-effective solutions than CloudFront. CloudFront is very expensive, but it works. You're seeing this panel right now, and that's what matters. That's what we care about. We want to make sure that the feed is delivered to you. So how do we get it to your screen? Well, it all starts at the source. So on the left of this image, you're going to see a bunch of cameras. So sort of on the top half, that's the club, and on the bottom three, that's sort of the event system. Like what's driving the panel that I'm talking at right now is on the bottom left. We have either volunteer cameramen who have really good streaming computers that can be in the world and streaming the event directly to our our main input vmix, or we have bot PCs. We call them bot PCs, but basically we have rented desktops that have 3090s in them and i9s, and they're all souped up, and wish I had it at home, but we're just renting it for the weekend so that we can deliver this in maximum frames, right? And so we park these cameras in special boxes in our worlds that lets our staff drive them around. So like this feed is coming to you from a desktop sitting somewhere in a box behind the scenes, while our camera staff is controlling a console that moves this camera around, and it delivers it directly to the next thing on the line here. So just to the right of the camera, we have on the bottom left, we have panel stream. This is a VM running in EC2 of AWS with graphics cards. I don't remember the exact instance size, but it's one of the ones with the T4 graphics card. It's like one of the biggest available options for having a graphics card attached to a VM in AWS. And it's running vmix on it so that we can switch between our cameras and have dynamic, intermission and all that. And then it goes into OBS locally on that same VM, which then goes to another service provided by AWS called Media Live. This is the main input on AWS's platform for most of their streaming services. My tracking is being a little weird. So regardless of whether you're streaming from a VM in the cloud, which we use so that our global staff can all access the same computer, or you're streaming from your desktop in your room, to get it into Amazon's infrastructure, you're generally going to connect to the service called Media Live. And this has an input that you can put in your stream URL and stream key in OBS and send the stream to it. And then in this service, you can tell it what you want it to do. So there's several different things that we do depending on the type of stream we're doing. We have our main panels go to 3 destinations from Media Live. It goes into S3 bucket for archiving. So it's just like hitting the record button in OBS where it saves a copy of the video, but it's saving it in the cloud, and Amazon calls it S3. And then it also goes to Twitch. So it's sending a copy of the stream to our Twitch TV /Furality for everyone who's not at the convention to see our panel. And then the third destination it sends it to is Media Package, which is how we get it into AWS CloudFront, their CDN service. So what this will do is take the stream, encode it into 1080, which is the native resolution or source, and it also changes it into 720 so that people who have less internet can also see the stream, or if you're on Quest, it's not as hard on your headset. And then for the club, it even turns it into audio only in case you want to just listen to it in the browser with because you're not in the club world or the player's not working for you or whatever the case is. So it transforms the video into those different formats, and then it pushes it into CloudFront, which is the content delivery network. This basically gets a copy of the files, or in this case, the stream, and sends it to every single server on its network. So there's one, in Los Angeles, there's one in like all the main, populated cities in the US, there's a couple in Europe, there's a couple, in Sydney, Australia, and Tokyo, Japan. It's sending a copy of this stream to those servers over the AWS network. It doesn't go outside of AWS. And then when you connect to the stream at your local, in VR chat on your home computer, it's going to talk to the closest server that has a copy of the stream. So you're downloading this video from your closest major city, not from, Oregon, West Coast of United States, which is where our main control is. So this has really allowed us to be able to deliver a solid stream to most attendees. It is still dependent on the last mile, which is what we refer to from that closest server to your house. You have your ISP, and they love telling you that you have perfect internet when you're clearly having less than a megabyte, even though you pay for 100, right? Depending on your country, it's I used to live in the Midwest. I understand what it's like to not have good internet. This allows us, we don't have that last mile control, but it at least gives us the best shot of giving you a solid stream that isn't buffering all the time. Other quick mentions here, like the stream for the club and the panels are very similar. The only biggest difference is instead of going to Twitch, we go to Mixcloud for the club because that's where copyright allows us to play a live stream of music. And then, of course, we're sending our CloudFront CDN packages directly to VR chat players in the world. So that's where that's being loaded. And that covers basically most of how this is architected. Let's see. So some other highlights. I kind of covered most of this, but all of our streaming infrastructure is in a CloudFormation stack. So basically, there's CloudFormation's automation tool for telling AWS what you want it to deploy. So we say have this many VMs and of this size and set up these connections and make it 1080 and make it 720 and make it talk to Twitch and make it talk to the bucket all in code. And then we say create this and it goes into this AWS and it makes all of it. So every convention we can say make the thing and it goes and makes it exactly how we need it. And then we can tear it all down after the convention and not worry about forgetting to connect two things together. Hello, tracking. For a very useful tool we also use is called Parsec, which allows us to get remote desktop. Close my door. Allows us to get remote desktop onto these VMs. It's really cool because it supports multiple monitors and it's multiple people can be on the same machine at the same time, which means handing off from the person controlling the stream in one state, they can effectively say, all right, you take over now. My shift is over, and somebody in an entirely different state or an entirely different country can, in real time, take over the control of this stream, and it's completely, solid. And sometimes things happens in people's houses. Their power goes out, the internet goes out. Well, somebody else can quickly hop on and keep the stream running. This is the main reason we have it in a VM. It's not dependent on anyone's home, infrastructure. I already talked about it being saved to S3. So here's some quick statistics. I'll let you look at the slide for a moment. I'm not going to linger too long on this, but we're using a lot of CPU cores, 4 terabytes of storage. Yeah, we have a terabyte connected to every single VM to save all of the stream, as another backup. Remember to back up your backups and then back those up in a different spot, because you never know when 2 or more things are going to forget to save your videos, and it'd be really bad if we lost every single backup, right? We want to put this all on YouTube later. So day 1 of Furality Aqua, we have already streamed 41 terabytes of video data. That is a lot. Oh my God. I don't even want to think about what the final number is going to be, because this is our biggest expense in IT. On average, for Legends, it costs us over $10,000 just for the delivery of the stream. Not counting the VMs, not counting anything else, but just for the bandwidth cost of sending this video and the club video to people in the world. This having solid stuff is expensive. This is why, things cost money, why the convention's not free. 69% of the traffic to the US and Canada, nice, I guess. 21% to Europe and 3% to Australia, and of course, other countries. All right. We're running it short on time here, so let me power through the retro little quick things. So let's talk about some high notes. Queues and Redis caching for runners made for a much smoother flow. There was a lot of things that we stored to allow updates of what events are going on, what the dealers are, that is just cached, so we don't have to call the database, and it responds much faster. The page loads much faster for things that aren't changing as often. And then we actually tested this system before the convention. They did a load test on I think the API, right? And it handled over 175 requests a second. That's a lot of requests. And we saw that, I think, during the convention, during the busy moments. You guys tested it for us at full speed. And then there's some screenshots here. The one on the right is the Telegram message I had posted as in that meme channel that Zach had mentioned in our Discord for DevOps. And I was telling Dalton, hey, it's Thursday before we open the club. Things are working. We tested this and it's working. And we tested this and it's working. And he's like, a first. You finally tested it, and I'm like, all right, fine, fair point. But we generally don't get the ability to test before the convention opens. But we launched this convention a day early, which let us, soft open on a Thursday. And hopefully you guys didn't notice much when you were joining the club world, but we were using that as a test to make sure that all of the changes we made and improvements we made didn't have any bugs, and work out the issues that pop up from weird things that we didn't think about happening, or stuff like that, to make it nice and smooth before Friday and the mass flood of attendees really show up. So it was a good thing that we were able to do that. API code was stable 1 week before convention time. We didn't really do any major changes to the API during the convention. And even with overhauling our whole stack, traffic flowed throughout the convention with very few user-facing issues. Keyword user-facing. So, things happen all the time, but generally the whole point is redundancy, right? If a system crashes, there should be other things to stand in its place while we get that back up, which is the whole point of having multiple pods running and multiple copies of every service running in the cluster. And everyone on DevOps team got to spend time in VR during the convention. Really? That's cool. But then when everybody was in the same instance, always something breaks, so we had to leave. So maybe not all at the same time, but we at least got in the convention. Some low notes. We had some weird responses that started popping up when we were talking to the VR chat API, and with the way it's written, it's expecting the response to be a specific format, and when it was different, it was crashing our stuff. So we had to figure out what it was sending back and why, and kind of write in extra rules to handle those situations. So we had some hiccups during the convention of stumbling across those and making sure we covered our bases. Our Dealer's Den videos were accidentally put behind Cloudflare. If you joined the Dealer's Den right when we opened, you may have noticed that there was a error message on every single video player for about 5 minutes until we fixed it, because we had, as mentioned before, now everything is behind Cloudflare, but we don't host our videos behind Cloudflare, but it's our DNS server. So it was accidentally left in proxy mode when it shouldn't have been. And so it was like, hey, you're not paying for proxy. It's like, we're not supposed to be proxied. So we just turned it off and fixed the problem. But it was like, I remember joining and seeing that. I was like, what happened? But easy fix, just a toggle. We're really bad with periods. Yes. So FIN is an acronym that has 4 periods in it, not 3, but it is commonly misspelled. And sometimes with the F.O.X portal too, it has 3 periods in it, F.O.X. That last dot's important. And so we kind of tease each other about forgetting to follow our own rules. Attendees could do whatever, but on the team we need it to be represented properly, right, in our UI. So there's an arrow pointing out a missing period, and then Chris wrote a message about a commit. It's like, people who end their commits with periods scare me, but looks good. And we were giggling about that. And of course, we had a PR a merge request to fix that missing period, but in the title of that, it was missing the period. So we thought that was pretty ironic. But yeah, we're kind of out of time. We're going to take any questions, one maybe.
Okay.
Hopefully this panel was informative.
This has been a really
You got a good
panel,
one?
but I'll get on with the question. Yeah. There's a couple of them. Are there any technologies in the system, either current or upcoming, you're most excited about incorporating your conventions?
Technology system, new or upcoming? Well, so me personally or the team? So some people, I'm pointing at you, the camera can't see who I'm pointing at, really wish that we didn't have any PHP at all. And so they are slowly convincing my entire dev team to rewrite everything into JS or other languages. Whatever. If it's fast and it works, cool. Obviously, I was for the React portal. It really needed to be something like that, super modular and fast and responsive. And as you can see from using it during the convention, it has allowed us to do some really cool things. And it's super snappy, even if maybe it's the top of the hour and, getting invites is a couple more seconds than usual. The UI is always very responsive and even shows cool loading animations and all that. So I think mostly on that end, we're pretty close to our final of what I think the main vision is of getting into sort of this architecture, but I sense that a lot of things are going to be rewritten into different languages, perhaps, if they get their way.
Cool. I think we're gonna try and squeeze one more in here for you. So, let's see. So, how do you ensure the backend works at scale so that it's all nice and smooth during peak times, like during the convention?
So the first step of doing that is making sure it works at all, right? And so having one of the new things we had that I don't think got mentioned was we have unit tests now for a lot of the API endpoints, because thank you, Nerdy, for helping with that. And I think you wrote some too, right, Kak? And so like having unit testing whenever you're deploying, making changes and making sure that the things you expect to work a certain way work is really important. Testing it in the development environment. Don't test your dev changes in prod. You're supposed to have a development environment. Make sure it's stable and it works. Then you scale it. So the making sure it works is important for it not crashing, and then scaling it is important for having the ability to serve the demand of the player base. So that's what the whole point of the infrastructure team is. And what we're doing with Kubernetes is we can at a moment's notice say, okay, we need more API service, make more copies of this service, and then it can distribute the demand of all of the attendees into less per server. It scales it out so that we can handle that.
Cool. I think we're able to squeeze one more in here.
Okay.
Let's see what I can do. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. Have you talked with the VR chat team about integrating the convention features like parties into the game?
No. Our internal development is entirely separate from VR Chat's development. As far as our connection with them, like I said during our last panel, we interface with their API, which has the official, unofficial documentation. If you Google VR Chat API documentation, it's labeled unofficial, but it's basically as good as you're going to get as knowing what it is. We just talk to that API. We don't have anything special, and we're not doing anything like collaborating or anything like that, at least at this time.
Cool. Thank you. I think with that, I guess if you want to give like a closing outro here, because I think we're out of time.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for coming to the Furality DevOps panel underwater edition, right? Furality Aqua has been amazing. I am super, super proud of the DevOps team for just bringing a really awesome feature set to this convention. I'm sure a lot of it was noticed by the attendees. That whole explore page with the map is really cool, and I'm glad that it was, able to be finished in time and it worked, and it really brought the immersion of this experience up a little level, a level. It's like it's all connected. So huge thank you to the entire DevOps team for really allowing this convention to be the best it can be. And of course, thank you to all the attendees for understanding when it's not as instant as you would like it to be, but it does eventually come. So thank you. That's all we got.